Hey, welcome to Wolf's Watch. Wolf here. I have a story from one of my excursions out scouring the countryside. As a leader of the pack, always out exploring, looking for food, for your mindset to help you be a better leader, to bring back. A while back, I had posted a fun adventure video on our YouTube channel, and you can go there, go to Adventure CEO on YouTube and check out our adventures playlist. I was having some fun with video that I had shot from a hike out to the bridge to nowhere. If you're a bungee jumping enthusiast, you've probably heard of this place. Bungee America has been jumping that bridge every weekend since 1989. So think about that. Every weekend since 1989. So that's 31 years now without an accident, let alone a fatality. So they have a very, very, very incredible safety record. That's why we jump with them. And it's a great experience. Good coaching. They have great attitude. So check out Bungee America if you want to. I highly recommend it for having an experience of your lifetime. This story, however, is about how the trail is more dangerous by far than actually jumping off the bridge. See, the bridge jump has everything that's necessary to make it safe. Has excellent leadership, has training for those that are jumping, and it's John Wooden of UCLA fame style training. Doesn't matter how many times you've jumped, you go back through the same basic training every time that you're out there with them. So it's to make sure everybody's prepped, they've trained, practice. And how do you practice jumping off a bridge? That's a story for another time. This is all part of excellence in leadership in working with your teams, right? So train, practice, model the behavior, demonstrate what needs to be done, and then guide people through, through leading people through what needs to happen. So that includes leading them through the trail, which is very dangerous, right? It's 5 miles into the wilderness in San Gabriel Mountains, northeast of Los Angeles. So, and it's a very remote area. If something happens, which it can, and this is what I want to show you. So what had happened when I went on this particular jump, I ended up not being able to jump because I had an accident on the trail and ruptured my left hamstring, which meant that I could only lift my left foot about that far. So there was no way I was going to be able to hoss my leg over the railing of the bridge, because the bridge comes up to, it's almost 4 feet high, the rim, the walls along the bridge. Beautiful 1930s bridge, literally out in the middle of nowhere. Another story for another time on the bridge. So it's the hike in and the hike out that can be dangerous because you're walking trails that in some areas are groomed very nicely. In some areas that are not, they're really just a goat trail. And in some areas, it's really hard to find the trail. You have to do some rock climbing in some spots. You cross a creek or river, depending on what time of year you're going and how deep the water is, half a dozen times. That's right, half a dozen times. So by the time you get to the jump site, the bridge itself is 165 feet, 160, 170 feet above the creek bed. So even when you're walking on groomed trails, you're literally on the edge of a cliff that's 100 to 2, anywhere from 100 to 150 feet above the floor of the canyon that the creek runs through. No railing, no room for error. And I'm going to show you that. So what happened? I had an accident on the trail. Something that can happen at any time is, from a hiking standpoint, is kind of the equivalent of tripping over a paper clip on the trail. And, we had been hiking for a couple hours, stopped to refresh before getting to the bridge. And I was double timing it to catch up to the pack, and really basically just Murphy'd it and got my feet tangled up in some rocks. And I was hiking around someone else that was going slower. I mean, it was really double timing, trying not to run because I had a pack on my back carrying supplies. It's a 4-hour loop when you go out and hike back. And, think about that. Have you ever done something like that? You always wanted to do it, and you get out there and find out that it's way more than you ever expected. If you have, put a 1 in the comments. So, and I had done this before, so I knew what to expect. I'm double timing it, and I just literally totally no excuse, right? Just lose my balance, get my feet, get my trailing foot caught up on some rocks. I'm trying to catch my balance. And when I did, I took a really super large step, and I'm watching because over here to my left is the edge of the cliff, right? So the trail is about 4 feet wide at that point. So I've got about 4 feet between me and a 150-foot drop because this is almost to the bridge at this point, right? So it's a fatal fall at that point if you go off the side. So I'm watching that and I'm losing my balance and I'm going diagonally across the path, and I plant my left foot really hard. And I mean, it was almost like doing a runner stretch, right? So all my weight came down on my fully extended front leg, and then that's when it just felt like my leg bone and my hip went in two opposite directions. And I took a step with my right, caught up to my left foot, stepped down, and it was searing pain right up the back of my leg. And it's like, oh, this is not good. And I'm getting closer to the edge. And I'm watching this. This is all happening like at this pace, right? So it's like step, 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 and I'm like, boom, I'm just going down. So I go face down into rocks. Right. You know, so it's a groomed part of the trail, but it's groomed with rocks that are about yay big, and they're not regular shapes, right? They're sharp edges, point. And I'm just like going, if I fight this, I risk slipping off the cliff or injuring myself even worse. So I just go down. The person that I had just passed on the trail, you know, catches up to me, asks if I'm okay, helps me up. You know, so that's one of the things that's nice out in the wilderness like that. Meet a lot of nice people on the trails in terms of, you know, there's a camaraderie and people stop and talk. I've had great conversations with people that I have never met before, never seen since, just walking along the trail, literally in the middle of nowhere. Because it is, again, the bridge is 5 miles in on the trail. The trailhead is 10 miles from the nearest state highway. And to get to the turnoff to that road, you're 10, 15 miles north, at least 10, 15 miles outside of city limits into the mountains. So this is into the mountains, right? We're talking, you're driving an hour into the mountains and literally nowhere. So it's nice, you know, you get that camaraderie, meet people on a trail. It's nice to have that because everybody's having a common experience and understand the risks for the most part. You know, there's some city folk, you know, some people that are new to the trail, the tenderfoots, if you will, that may not have it, but I haven't really crossed paths with anyone like that. I think everybody's very aware of it. It's a dynamic environment. It's a dangerous environment. And, you know, they have to airlift people out that have had serious injuries because of falls and whatnot on the trail. On part of the trail, along the creek bed, you see people panning for gold. They still pan for gold, just like the California gold rush. It's not over. The literal gold rush itself, they pan for gold and they actually find it. You know, I don't know how much. I don't know if they're making a living, but there's still, you know, there's reports that people get some gold dust enough that they can cash it in or, you know, make a collection out of it or a demonstration. They go, hey, found a little bit of dust. You know, with today's gold prices, I'd be cashing in every bit. But that's just me. So it is literally out in the wilderness. So I shared the video they'd taken on the way hiking back out. So I couldn't jump. I watched them go through the training, watched a few people jump, and figured, you know what? I've got a 5-mile hike out with a serious injury. This is going to take a long time. I mean, because it's 5 miles in, so you're talking 2 hours, 3 hours is a pretty good pace in that environment. So if you think about that, you know, usually a normal brisk walk is about 3 miles an hour, 3 to 5 miles an hour. So it's a good couple hours to get in. So it took 2.5 hours to hike in. It took almost 5 to hike back out. Because again, I couldn't pick my foot up. I could just lift my leg enough to be able to swing, to take a step forward with my right foot. I could pick my left foot up just enough to get my hiking boot off the surface of the ground and swing my hip. I couldn't use the muscles because the tendon, you know, the hamstring, the tendon was separated from the bone. It was an ugly deal. It hurt like hell. I'll just say that. So all I could do was just swing that leg, set it down, take another step, swing the leg to catch up. Couldn't take a full stride. And there were some very technical areas to hike through. It is not flat. And again, you have to do some rock climbing. There's one spot in particular that is very, very dangerous because there was a landslide and there's nothing but the debris from the slide. at the edge of the cliffs. You're on this trail. Imagine this. You're on this trail, and I'm going to show this to you in just a moment, where you're on the edge of this cliff, trail 3-4 feet wide, 100+ feet off the edge to your right, hillside, you got mountain and hillside to your left. There's nowhere to go but the trail. And all of a sudden the trail ends because there was a landslide and it's just gone. It slid off the side of the mountain. Or there's what I would describe as a goat trail that goes up through this loose dirt and back down. So it's about 20 yards total by the time you go up, arc back down. There, the trail is as wide as your boot. That's all you've got. And if you slip, there is nothing to grab onto. You're already on loose soil. So if you slip, you're just going to shoot right down the slide area, off in the air. So here I am with this injured hamstring. I can't walk right, serious pain. And I had to climb up, and I had to climb because it's up and it is steep up. You'll see this in a minute. I had to climb up and around and down to do that. Well, I shared the video of that on our adventures playlist, and I got some feedback from some people, like with the Sunset Motorcycle Ride. Got some feedback. They're going, "Oh, come on, we couldn't really, we thought we were going to see more perspective on the trail and how dangerous it really was. It didn't really look that dangerous." So here's what I want to show you. This is, let me get this set up for you. So that's the setup. We're on the trail. So I want to show you what the trail actually looked like. You can see here's the trail here. So you can see how wide this is at this point, and it's getting narrower. This is the slide area up here. And I will play this for you in just a second. So this is the slide area. But you can see here's the trail. Look how wide that is. It's only about 4 or 5, maybe 5 feet. I don't think so. It's 4 feet. And then look at that drop. There is nothing but air. Or you can't even see the treetops in the canyon below from there. This is because it's a different height. Some places it's good 200 feet up. And so this is one of the highest points above the canyon as well. So this is you'll hear the crunch of the trail. So this is what I was hiking, and what people wanted to see is look how now there's a shot. Let me back that up for you. Hang on a second. I'm watching this on my computer screen so I can see a little bit bigger here. And look how clear it was. It's such a beautiful day, So here's the look right there. So this is what you're up against in this hiking. So you've got this 4 foot wide trail. Boom. You're off the side. Now we're in the shade because the sun's over this side of the mountain. This is literally the mountainside here. And, but again, such a beautiful day. And this is the same camera that I used on the Sunset Ride. So you can see, on the Sunset Ride, it wasn't as clear as it should have been because a bug sacrificed itself on the camera lens on the way up the mountain and muddied up the view a bit. But here, and this was just in high def. So I had reduced the camera resolution to standard HD, which is pretty darn nice. Otherwise, it would have been at 4K. It's just at 4K because I knew I had such a long hike. I didn't have enough batteries to be able to record on the way out. So I wanted to maximize the record time. Right, 4K, beautiful, pristine. Love how it looks. Challenge is choose batteries up. So here's what the hike looked like. I'm going to need to put my headphones on so that I can hear along with you and be able to narrate better. So here we go. Here's hiking the trail along the cliff. Also got a wider angle in HD mode. So look at how close this is to the edge, right? Here you got a little something you can grab onto. When we get up to this area, there is nothing. Look at that. So you can see here's where it came from. So it's a little protected area back in here. But when you get along this ridge, it's not really even a ridge. It's just where they carved out a flat spot out of the side of the mountain. And there's a lot of trust. You pass other hikers, it would be easy to slip and bump somebody off the side, or if somebody had ill intent. But we really don't see that out there hiking much. But it's very dangerous. And fortunately, there's a lot of camaraderie. Something else here, the story on this trail, the reason the bridge is where it's at in the 1930s, there was an attempt to build a road. So this is actually an old roadbed. somebody thought this was going to be a good idea to attempt to put a road through here to create an alternate route to Wrightwood, California from the Los Angeles Basin, cutting through. So this is north. If you're familiar with the Los Angeles Basin, Azusa is city in the foothills east of Los Angeles, probably about 30 miles east of Los Angeles, and State Route 39 cuts up into the mountains. It's been closed for a long time because there was a landslide that took most of the road out in about a half mile to mile and a half section where it connected to the famous Highway 2 or Angeles Crest Highway. And so you used to be able to take 39 up from Azusa, and actually in some of the old Perry Mason TV shows, they talk about that and they use that as a filming area where you drive up to US 2 and then across to Wrightwood, which is a ski, then you're into the ski areas. So think about that. 1930, so that would be 85 years ago. So it was mid 30s, I think it was 34, 35 when they built it. So they built a road through here, and that's why the bridge was there. They'd already created the bridge before the road was done. And it was a very wet winter, and the road, because they had built it half a dozen times across the creek bed, right? Well, when it rained, this is an arroyo down here in the canyon, or in other words, you get all of this water that flash floods, and it washed a couple of the bridges out that they had set up for the road. So they rebuilt it the next year, another rainy winter. Guess what? Same thing happens. Then for some reason, somebody decided, maybe this isn't such a good idea. This seems like it's not going to work. So they abandoned the project, left the bridge to nowhere, because it's literally a bridge in the middle of the wilderness that crosses a canyon and ends at the face of a cliff on the other side. There's no road. There's nowhere they could have built a road. Anyway, here's back to the hike. As you can see, some of this is camera angle, but not all of it. So this also tilts a little bit. This isn't completely flat, level land. And part of that is it keeps shifting, right? This used to be, and you can see spots, and I think this may be one of them right here, where there's still slabs of concrete from where they poured the roadbed in 80 plus years ago. But it keeps slowly going over the side. And what a beautiful day. Look at that blue sky. That's amazing too. This is the parts of Los Angeles you don't see in the TV shows. So if I moved wrong, it's like somebody was driving a knife into the back of my leg, right where it connects to the hip. Sorry, I got excited here and just accidentally unplugged my headphones. Now, so this is the goat trail that I was telling you about. So this is where you can see the trail ends right here. This used to be road. This should be actually road that went through here over to the other side where this bush now grows. It had, a landslide took it away. So all you have is just this rubble that's left from the rock slide that came from farther up the mountain. So what you have to do on a trail this wide is hike up. So you can see how steep this is from this angle. You have to hike up this hill on a trail this wide around over here to the other side, and it comes down just in front of this bush. So this is what was missing in the video, that if you saw that and if you were one of the people that said, hey, this doesn't look nearly as dangerous as you said it was, consider this. Because look, this ends right here. That's almost 200 feet to the bottom. And there's nothing. You got a little bit of bush right here that you might want to grab onto. See where the cursor is swirling around there that you can grab onto. But is that really going to hold you? Do you want to test that? I certainly didn't. So this is where we had to go. And remember, my hamstring's shot on my left leg, so all I can do is swing my foot forward a little bit. So the camera may not really give you the perspective, but look at this. Here's the trail right here. It's a foot, the width of your boot, and this is the edge of the cliff right here. So you have the width of your boot between this rock Okay, two widths of the boot, if you will. So you've got the rock, the trail, which is just about as wide as your boot, another boot width of loose rock, and it's 200 feet down. You feel me? You're getting the point here. So if you were so think about that. This is don't know what to say. It was it's dangerous when you're in good health. When you've got a bum leg, it really makes it exciting. So I used the rock to balance myself because I was having a balance problem. But and I was being sarcastic there because it hurt like heck. So now here's another one of those spots where look at this. See, get a little sense of the trail right here. That's all you've got to work with. And if you slip on that, it's just this loose rock, this gravel that shoots you down to the, shoots you down to the edge of the cliff. Cause now we're probably 15, 20, a good 15, 20 plus feet above where the trail was earlier before we started climbing up on this goat trail. And if you slide, so you drop down that and you shoot off into nothing but air for a good 100, 200 feet. That'll give you some perspective. So you can see how wide the trail is. There's the cliff. That's it. There's nothing till you hit the bottom of the canyon. If you slip on that, there's nothing to grab onto. There's nothing to stop you. You just go. This is the other reason I stopped. Two reasons I stopped. The first was gives good perspective on how dangerous this particular situation is, especially when you're basically walking on one leg. Right? Because remember, if you've ever had a torn hamstring, that's that plus. I really had lost about 80% of the use of my left leg and still had to hike out to this. Here's the other thing though. Look at how beautiful this is, right? It's still a time of year where we get a lot of green on the mountainside. Still got some of the brown. I think a lot of this was from fire damage the previous summer. And it's one of the things I love about being out in that area and taking hikes on trails like this because it's such a beautiful area. The air's clean. You can hear the rustle of the wind through the canyons, through the shrubs and the bushes. You get the sound of, lizards that are running through the brush. Who knows, can't see them, occasional rattlesnake, the birds that are flipping around. Saw quite a few butterflies. I don't know how many I caught on camera on that day, but it's just such a gorgeous day. And that's it's leading into one of the lessons that I got from this experience that I want to share with you after we get back to some safe ground here. So let's move on to some safe ground. You don't want to lose your balance right here. That's why I stopped talking on camera because I was very focused on because I was having a hard time with my balance. It was essentially walking on one leg. So I had to stop and start. Oh man. Watching it, you may not be feeling the intensity, but it's still making my heart race watching this again because I remember what that felt like. And I was freaking terrified at this point because it's a very narrow trail. I know there have been serious injuries in this area in the past. I'm having a hard time maintaining my balance. I've only got the full use of one leg because my hamstring is seriously injured on my other leg. And it was quite, man, it just makes my heart race watching this again. It's like reliving the whole thing. And then you got to hike down. So you go up, coming back down. This is starting to get to some. So now it's back to safety. And we've got a whole 3 feet to play with between the side of the mountain and the 150, 200 foot cliff. So this is, again, look at how beautiful this is. Right? I mean, and it's love the grays and the greens, the gray blues, the sound of the wind blowing through the canyon, the crunch of the rocks under my hiking boots. So you think about that when you're out there and you can feel the wind. It's a technical hike, so you're sweating quite a bit, yet you still have that nice cool breeze coming through the mountains off the Pacific Ocean. Because at this point, I believe we're about 5,000 feet, 5,000, 6,000 feet up, even though we started at sea level earlier in the day. And this is about noon, 1 o'clock, because we hiked in at 6 a.m. We started hiking at 6 a.m. And so this is getting to be somewhere towards, by the time I got back to the parking lot to get in the cars, around 1. So this is 1 or 2. Anyway, the beauty of the area. So here's the thing. I'm in severe pain. I'm very concerned about the accident they had before, keeping me immobilized enough, off balance enough that it leads to another worse or even fatal accident, because people die on this trail. People get airlifted out to, to emergency care every year. There's multiple times when something happens on a trail. The only way to get them to any type of emergency services is to bring a helicopter in and airlift them out, which is dangerous on itself, dangerous for the person being rescued, but also for the rescue teams. And so I'm thinking, all this is going through my mind, and there's the wind blowing, the connection to the ground, because I can feel, the rocks through the soles of my hiking boots, and that uneven ground, and get that crunch that helping you feel connected with each step. The sound of the wildlife, and it's like, what are you going to do? There's still a good solid 2-3 hours of this experience ahead before getting back to the trailhead where the car's parked. What are you going to do? I mean, normally I would double time it back to the car, because I wanted to get back for lunch, and I had work to do in the afternoon. So I figured I'd be back, back at the office no later than 1, having had lunch, and, be ready to do some work in the afternoon. So at this point, I'm just worried about surviving the trail. So I got some snacks, still had some water. I think I had 1 bottle of water. So I'm a little low on water, but not enough that it's a concern. So in this wilderness out here in this area, got to remember, this is still Southern California. It's very arid, so it's easy to dehydrate, especially under extreme stress. And to have an injury like that, the pain that comes with it puts one under extreme stress. Trust me on this. Don't experiment. You don't have to have the experience yourself. Trust me on this. So still, there's just, at this point, and one of the things I dialed into, and a huge lesson for me, was like, how am I going to respond to this situation? I'm extremely stressed. I'm in intense pain. If I am not on my game, if I'm not bringing my A game and completely focused 100% on what's going on around me, I can very easily put myself in a position that will lead to a fatal hiking accident, because the cliff's off to the side, and there's and there is still at least 2 to 3 hours of this hiking to get back to true safety. And I just had one of those Zen moments where it's like going, you know what? And this view is what did that. It's such a beautiful day. It's thinking, I can complain. I can focus on the pain. I can worry about what's going to happen and fight this all the way back to the car. Or I can take a deep breath, connect with what's going on around me, enjoy the beauty of the day, and see what I would not normally see. And that put me in a mindset, in a state of mind, where I felt more like a passenger on the hike than the leader of the hike. I relaxed. I've heard it called, gripping firmly but loose. It's sometimes when you grip onto something, you learn that in sports, where you grab somebody's wrist. If they're wrenching away, if you try to grip too tight, it makes it easier for them to break the hold. Then if you grip firm, where you have your fingers locked, but you're not so tight that it's possible to get leverage on hand. So it's firm but loose. Think about that one for a while. That'll blow your mind up for a while. And it's one of those things, I can either, I can respond to this, or I can react. That's the core of the lesson. I can respond to this, or I can react to the pain. I decided to respond to it. And that led to an amazing several hours that followed. amazing conversations with people I met along the trail that offered assistance or just offered a minute to catch breath. And because I could see the way I was moving, that was in a bit of distress. Uh, and I also enjoyed the beauty of the trail and the wilderness and the ruins of the old road and some of the old bridge foundations that I wouldn't have had time for otherwise, because I would have been so focused on double timing the trail out, walking fast, hiking as fast as I could without, breaking the margin of safety and getting hurt to the car in order to get back to the plan I had for the day. Now, it was clear the plan that I had for the day was off. And I accepted this right in this area, walk before I got to the corner that you can't quite see clearly. The trail goes out in the sunlight and then bends around the ridge following the canyon. Or I accepted it going, I had a plan for the day. And it's like, okay, we're both laughing at it now. And just meditated for a few minutes, took a deep breath, and had a heck of a day enjoying being truly out in the wilderness. There's a huge lesson for me in that, and that I want to share with you on leadership, right? React or respond. Take a deep breath and choose to respond. And in that moment, step back to observe what's happening in the context. Because as a leader, you need to be focused on the big picture while getting the task at hand accomplished, right? So this is why adventuring is so important, because not to have these types of experiences where, under extreme duress because of an injury, you find yourself in an extremely dangerous situation and need to deal with that and cope with it. Although if it does happen, it lifts your coping skills quite a bit, reframes your threshold for pain, shifts the perspective, so it breaks that frame a little bit and helps realign your paradigm for how you perceive a lot of things. Without the injury and the accident, it still does that. It's about getting out in the wilderness, having adventures is about adjusting your paradigm, because you will see things, you will do things that will stretch your perception. To be out of the city and connected with the wilderness, not just nature, I love the parks. Where I grew up, my parents, I was so fortunate to have parents that love spending time in the local parks. I deeply appreciated that. Also had the opportunity to get out and enjoy the countryside because some of the family and some of the friends of the family still ran farms. So growing up, got to spend a few weeks on actual working farms. It was a great experience to be out in a rural area on a farm for a weekend, as opposed to just growing up in the city. Living in a huge metropolitan area like Los Angeles, the parks are wonderful. Being able to go to the beach, turn your back to the city and just see nothing but water from Santa Monica Bay, because that's a open ocean, deep water port, right? And you're looking out, there's like nothing between you and Hawaii. There's a couple islands that scattered about, but there's no firm land until you get to, like the Hawaiian island chain before you get to Asia. Think about that. Connect with that. All right. It gives perspective. On a radio show that I used to do, I interviewed Nicole Scott, and she talked about doing outrigger races from Los Angeles, or from Long Beach, I believe, or Newport Beach to Catalina Island. And hey, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. I'm glad you're part of the conversation. Boom. Hey, so here's this gal, petite gal, that's talking about, she's a professional outrigger racer. So they get in, outrigger canoes, like you would see the opening in Hawaii Five-0 is something, the original Hawaii Five-0. Growing up, used to see that, where they're digging in the waves. Well, they race those. It's 25 miles across the ocean from Los Angeles to, from the California coast to Catalina Island. And that may not be the exact, it's 25 plus or minus. It may not be exact. So, if you want to, where to send the hate mail. If the point is, she was sharing about that. And she said, one of the things about being in those types of adventure activities, it puts a lot of things in perspective. And that was something I experienced on this trail. Another lesson, the second point and lesson I want to share with you that I got from this trail, and then we'll be letting you go. On this trail, looking at that view and walking from where I was at in the shade. So think about this transition. Just took you through that very dangerous goat trail. Now we're on some safer ground. Now hiking through the shade, coming out into sunlight shortly. So from that process of going from extreme duress, extreme stress, extreme danger through the shade out into the sunlight was where this process happened for me, that react versus respond. And then, the second thing being having a sense of just how freaking small I was compared to these huge mountains, the deep canyon, and the wilderness around me. And I don't mean small in a negative way. I just mean, you know, pinpoint on the globe, microscopic dot on the marble, right? We live on a tiny blue marble because everything's so interconnected. Yet it's still such a huge, vast place. There's so much more going on that I have absolutely no influence and control over. I need to respond to it, make the best of it. The classic make lemonade out of lemons. That's what I did with that day. And I had a phenomenal experience that I otherwise would have missed and learned a lot more about myself, for one thing, on that trail, as well as having a chance to meet and talk with other people that I would have been high by because I would have been on the way back to the car. But because that injury slowed me down, I took it, you know what? So third point, bonus. Another lesson I got from that was this is the universe's way of slowing me down, or however you want to, whatever your belief system is, take that however you want. And I looked at that as a third point of learning, saying, you know what, this is forcing me to slow down. I can't control it. So I'm going to make the best of it. And that led to just an incredible day. And there's no cell service out in that area as well. So it wasn't like I could call and let anyone know that I was injured and moving slow. And that if I didn't show up at such and such time, that I was in trouble because I was already in trouble. It was a great day. I hope you enjoyed the video, and appreciate you joining me for Wolf's Watch. This is Friday afternoon, Friday evening, depending on where you're watching it. And we'll have some more adventure videos. We'll have a lot more. We'll have more interviews, more golden nuggets. We'll be continuing our series on leading change as well. And I am just glad you're part of the conversation. If you like what you're seeing and hearing, show how you're feeling by clicking the like button. If you're watching this on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our Adventure CEO channel. And I will see you on the trail.